The morning mist still clung to the edges of the pasture when Eli Thompson walked down the gravel drive with a cup of black coffee in one hand and his aging German shepherd, Duke, at his side. Birds chirped lazily overhead, and the old barn creaked, in rhythm with the breeze. For the first time in years, it felt like peace. Then he saw it, a sheet of paper, taped to the wooden gate with bright blue painter's tape. Fluttering against the metal latch, he frowned. No postage, no envelope, just a single page flapping in the wind like a warning flag. He tore it free and squinted at the top line. Notice of violation, Maple Ridge Homeowners Association. His brow furrowed. The rest of the page read like an ultimatum. Double quotes, Mr. Thompson. It has come to our attention that your property at 400 to Cedar Hill Drive is in direct violation of Articles 5, 9, and 14 of the Maple Ridge HOA Charter. This includes unauthorized commercial activity, nuisance noise levels, and improper use of agricultural space. You are hereby ordered to cease operations immediately or face daily fines and legal action. Censor. Eli, Karen Whitmore, HOA President Telly, lowered the paper slowly. Karen Whitmore, he muttered, glancing down at Duke. We're not even in Maple Ridge. Duke gave a low, skeptical growl as if he agreed. Eli walked back up the drive, the gravel crunching beneath his boots. He passed the kennels quiet now, most dogs still asleep after early morning exercise, and stepped onto the porch where Mir sat with her laptop and a fresh spreadsheet of the week's training schedule. You're gonna want to see this, he said, handing her the letter. She read it once, then again. Her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. We're not even in the HOA boundaries. What is she talking about? I don't know, Eli said. But she thinks we are. By noon, Eli had pulled out old land surveys, county maps, and zoning approvals. All confirmed the same thing. Their farm sat just outside the Maple Ridge HOA boundary. He had deliberately chosen the land years ago for that reason. Clean, unrestricted space. Perfect for training service dogs without red tape. But that didn't stop Karen Whitmore from arriving at 2:13 p.m. on the dot. Eli spotted her car first, her spotless white Lexus crawling up the long gravel path like it didn't want to get dirty. When it reached the front of the house, she stepped out in neatly pressed khakis, wedge sandals, and a clipboard pressed tightly to her chest. Eli met her at the porch steps. Afternoon, he said cautiously. Karen didn't smile. Mr. Thompson, we need to talk about your noncompliance. I don't think we do, he replied, calm but firm. This property, and in Maple Ridge, I confirmed it myself. You don't have jurisdiction here. Karen's smile was tight, calculated. Actually, there was an expansion to our charter boundaries last year. All properties along the outer line, including yours, are now subject to oversight. That would require a vote. There was one. I never got notified. Karen tilted her head. Well, perhaps you overlooked it. Regardless, you're now under our protection, which means certain activities must cease immediately. Eli looked out over the field, where a young Labrador bounded in a fenced enclosure. I run a non-profit canine training program for law enforcement and veterans. We don't charge the handlers. We're county certified. Karen's lips pressed thin. Regardless of your intentions, this is a residential community, and barking dogs, strange vehicles, and unregistered visitors create an uncomfortable environment for families. Mia stepped onto the porch beside Eli. Our nearest neighbor is half a mile away. Karen's gaze flicked to her, then back to Eli. We've received complaints. From who? She didn't answer. Instead, she handed him a second letter and turned back toward her Lexus. You'll want to read that carefully. Daily fines begin Monday. Eli stared after her, the dust from her tires rising like smoke in the afternoon sun. He opened the envelope slowly. It was an official-looking document, citing penalties, HOA hearing dates, and implied threats of legal action. The kicker was at the bottom. Failure to comply may result in referral to HOA security enforcement. He scoffed. Security enforcement sounds like a bad neighborhood watch. But as he looked back at the barn, where the silhouettes of a few dogs paced behind the mesh fencing. A weight settled in his gut. Something told him this wasn't about nice or zoning or dogs. It was about control, and Karen Whitmore had just declared war. 2 days later, the sky was overcast, the kind of gray that pressed low over the farm like a warning. The breeze carried the scent of freshly turned soil and the metallic edge of coming rain. Eli had been replacing fencing in the side pasture when he spotted the Lexus, again white, gleaming, and slow as a prowling cat, pulling up to the front of the property. But this time, Karen didn't come alone. A second car followed behind, a black SUV with tinted windows and men in polo shirts marked HOA enforcement officer stitched in navy across the chest. Mia watched from the porch as Eli wiped his hands on his jeans and walked to meet them. Karen stepped out like she was on a mission, her heels clicking on gravel. She didn't bother with pleasantries. "Mr. Thompson, since you failed to attend your preliminary hearing with the HOA board yesterday, we're here to conduct an on-site inspection." Eli raised an eyebrow. "There was no hearing. You sent a piece of paper with fake dates on it." Karen handed him another printed notice. "This is your final warning. We're prepared to issue citations for each active violation." One of the men opened a tablet and began taking photos of the barn, the kennels, even Duke, who sat calmly at Ellie's heel, eyes sharp and locked onto the strangers. "You're not law enforcement," Eli said. "This is private property. You don't have a warrant. You don't have jurisdiction." Karen pursed her lips. "Our charter gives us authority over conduct within Maple Ridge's designated jurisdiction. And as of last year, that includes Cedar Hill properties. We have every right to verify compliance." Actually, Mia called from the porch, holding a folder. "We double-checked with the county zoning board this morning. There's no formal record of any expansion being approved. This whole boundary adjustment you keep waving around, it's not legally binding." Karen's eyes narrowed. "I highly doubt that's accurate. I'm happy to share the email we got directly from the planning department," Mia replied calmly. The man with the tablet paused, clearly uncertain. Karen stepped in close, voice low but loaded. "You don't want to make this difficult, Mr. Thompson. We can escalate this to nuisance abatement. You think the sheriff's department won't get involved if I report animal waste runoff or aggressive breeds roaming freely?" Eli didn't blink. "Every dog on this property is registered and working under state or federal contract. Some of them are former bomb detection units. Some were rescued from war zones. Every one of them is better trained than your enforcement officers over there." Karen bristled. "You think you're above the rules because you were military. I think you're bending them because you want power." Eli replied evenly. "This land has been here longer than your HOA ever existed. I built it for something bigger than lawn paint and mailboxes." Dick stood, low, ears forward. He took a slow step toward the nearest man, who quickly lowered his camera. "Call your lawyer," Karen said tightly, stepping back, "because next time, we won't be so polite." That evening, Eli sat on the porch steps, a file spread across his lap. Mia scrolled through zoning documents on her tablet. "They're not bluffing," she said. "Karen's been rewriting her own rules and trying to push them through the cracks. There's some shady paperwork, but nothing legal has been finalized." "Not yet," Eli nodded. "She's trying to force the issue before the county steps in." "Why us, though?" Mia asked. "Why is she pushing so hard on us?" Eli didn't answer right away. He looked out across the field, where a group of police officers were loading their dogs into SUVs after a training session. Their vehicles were marked from 3 different precincts. "She's afraid," he said finally. "Afraid that something real is happening here. Something she can't control." Mia glanced over. "So what do we do?" Eli reached down and scratched Duke behind the ear. The dog leaned into it, steady as stone. "We don't back down. We document everything. And if she wants a fight." He looked back toward the front gate, where the blue tape notice still fluttered on a rusted nail. "We give her one." That night, the wind picked up, A security camera near the barn caught a faint movement, just a shadow slipping along the fence line. Duke growled deep in his chest. Eli didn't sleep, because he knew the next move wouldn't come in broad daylight. By the following week, it became obvious that Karen wasn't finished. In fact, she was just getting started. It began subtly. The farm's trash cans were overturned one morning. The contents scattered across the driveway like roadkill. A few days later, their mailbox was pried open and left hanging by one hinge. Then came the drone, small, silent, and low. It buzzed across the property line just after sunset, hovering near the barn before zipping off toward the woods. Eli reviewed the footage from their security system and clipped the timestamp. Same time, different angle, he muttered, playing back a second camera showing the drone lifting off from somewhere near the HOA's common greenbelt. Mia stood behind him, arms crossed, eyes tense. She's escalating, yeah, he said, pausing the frame, and she's getting bolder. That same night, they received an official letter from Karen. This time on HOA legal letterhead. Allegedly, it cited multiple violations, including unauthorized commercial enterprise, disturbance of neighborhood peace, and unauthorized foot traffic. At the bottom, typed in small caps, was a chilling line: continued violation will trigger forced HOA compliance action, including enforcement personnel and liens. Mia frowned. She's trying to fake legal muscle. Eli didn't respond. He was too focused on the envelope itself. It was postmarked from a P.O. box in town, but not the same address used in previous letters. He set it aside and made her mental note. To mornings later, Mia found something deeply unsettling. She was checking the property line near the back fence when she spotted deep tire tracks leading up to a patch of flattened brush used outside their boundary. Someone had parked there recently, likely at night, and watched. She followed the trail for a few feet before finding a crumpled, discarded cigarette pack. Same brand Karen's vice president, Ron, always smoked at HOA meetings. Mia called Eli over, and they stood in the quiet field, the dogs barking faintly in the distance. They're watching us, she whispered. From the woods, Eli knelt and ran a hand over the dirt. Or planning something worse. The next incident shattered the last bit of doubt. A police vehicle showed up unannounced. The deputy, a middle-aged man named Walter, stepped out and approached slowly, radio crackling on his hip. Afternoon, Mr. Thompson, he said, adjusting his hat. Got a call about unregistered weapons and dogfights. Eli blinked. Excuse me. Walters glanced at his notepad. Embarrassed. Anonymous tip. HOA complaint. Said you were running illegal activity. Dogs trained to attack. Possibly explosives on site. Eli stood there, stunned. You serious? Walter sighed. I had to check. But honestly, this looks like a clean operation. I've seen some of your dogs at the precinct. Good animals. Trained better than half my old unit. Mir appeared from the porch. So what happens now? Nothing, Walter said. I'm filing it as a baseless report. But off the record, he looked at Eli carefully. This isn't the first time Karen's pulled this. You're just the first one who hasn't packed up and moved. Allie's jaw tightened. She wants to make it personal. Walters nodded. And if she can't win legally, she'll lean on fear. As the deputy left, Mia turned to Eli, her voice low. How far is she willing to go? Eli looked toward the barn, where Duke stood watching. Posture stiff. Ears alert. We haven't seen her worst yet. That evening, Eli wrote everything down, every incident, every letter, every drone sighting. He scanned them, saved copies, and uploaded everything to cloud storage. He forwarded copies to their attorney and filed an official complaint with the county. Still, Karen was clever. When Eli tried to contact the county zoning board for the third time, he was told, the matter is being reviewed. But due to a backlog, expect delays. When they asked about the HOA charter expansion, they received carefully worded replies. Documents pending review. It was like the system had been slowed. Deliberately. Later that night, after dinner, the dogs went wild. It wasn't the usual bark. They barked in short bursts. sharp and aggressive. Eli grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside. Duke was already at the fence, nose high, growling low, from the tree line. Just past the boundary came a flicker like a lighter being struck. Then footsteps, quick and distant. He scanned the woods with the beam, but saw nothing. By the time he returned inside, his phone buzzed. A new email had just arrived from the horror inbox. You are now officially on HOA fine escalation level 2. Your continued resistance only delays the inevitable. Eli read the message, face unreadable. Then he looked at Mir and said quietly, they want to break us before they burn us. He wasn't wrong. By morning, the barn would be in flames. The wind changed direction at 3:12 am. It wasn't the kind of thing most people would notice. But Eli had lived enough nights in tents and fobs to feel when the world around him shifted. Something had stirred in the silencer scent that didn't belong. Acrid, chemical. Then Duke erupted into a furious bark from inside the house. The kind that said danger now, not later. The other dogs in the kennel joined him a second later. Sharp, shrill chaos breaking through the night. Eli jumped out of bed barefoot, adrenaline flooding his chest. Mia sat up just as fast, already dialing 911. From the back window, flames danced. Behind the barn. Eli burst through the front door with nothing but shorts and a t-shirt. The fire glowed orange and hunger crackling along the eastern wall of the barn, crawling up the dry siding like it had been waiting to come alive. Smoke curled upward in thick, black ribbons. He didn't stop to think. He ran. Inside the barn were 2 dogs still in their crates after late-night tracking drills. Eli grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and kicked the side door open. The heat rushed toward him like a wave. But he pushed forward, covering his mouth with his arm. Easy, easy, I got you, he yelled, unclipping one crate door and swinging open the other. The dogs bounded past him into the open air as he sprayed down a pile of smoldering hay. The flames hissed, but kept spreading. Then came the boom, a small explosion, sharp and sudden, likely from a propane tank he'd forgotten behind the tool shelf. It knocked Eli backward against the wall, stars dancing in his vision. Sirens wailed in the distance. By the time the fire trucks arrived, a third of the barn was gone. The crew moved fast, drowning the structure in foam and water. But the damage had already carved its mark. Smoke bled from the rafters, the roof sagged, the rear training wall had collapsed completely. Eli stood by the edge of the field, a blanket draped over his shoulders. His hands were scraped raw, and his eyes stung from smoke. But the dogs were safe. That was all he could care about right now. Mia came running out of the house with a folder. They're here, she said, breathless. The fire marshal, a squat man with a clipboard and an old scar across his cheek, approached. We've got early signs it was electrical. Maybe a short from an extension cord, or... No, Eli said flatly, shaking his head. I unplug everything every night. There's no wiring on the south wall where it started. The marshal eyed him for a moment. You saying you think this was intentional? Eli didn't say a word. He walked over to the ruins and knelt near the still smoking edge of the haystack. He reached in carefully, fingers curling around a broken glass bottle. The label had burned off, but the smell was unmistakable: kerosene and gasoline. I'm saying, Eli muttered, standing up slowly. Someone wanted this barn gone. At 9 a.m, as if on cue, Karen Whitmore showed up. She wore sunglasses and a neutral beige blouse, expression carefully composed. Her Lexus idled quietly by the road. She stepped out and surveyed the damage like she was attending a memorial. Mia stood defensively on the porch while Eli walked up to her, sit still, streaking his arms. My, Karen said. What a horrible thing. I came as soon as I heard. You expect me to believe that? Eli asked. That this wasn't part of your campaign? Karen's brows lifted. Mr. Thompson, I find that accusation wildly inappropriate. We've had our disagreements, but I would never condone something like this. Eli didn't blink. The barn was county certified. Any damage to that structure is a federal issue now. Karen's smile faltered for a split second, so quick that most would have missed it. But Eli saw it. So did Duke. Growling low at her heels, I truly hope you find whoever did this, she said. But maybe this is a sign it's time to rethink your operations here. Clearly, they've become a danger to the neighborhood. She turned and got into her Lexus Dodge as she pulled away. Eli noticed something hanging from her rearview mirror, silver emblem with the Maple Ridge HOA logo. It swung lazily back and forth, reflecting light like a pendulum. Later that afternoon, Eli met with the fire marshal again, though the official report wouldn't be finalized for another week. The investigator confided something important. There was an accelerant used, no doubt about it. Eli clenched his jaw. So this wasn't an accident? No, sir, the marshal replied. It was a message. Eli stared out at the scorched barn. If they wanted war, they just made it official, and this time, he wasn't alone. 3 days after the fire, Eli sat at the kitchen table surrounded by folders, printouts, and a map of Maple Ridge with zoning overlays. The scorched barn loomed outside the window like a monument to the line Karen had crossed. Duke lay quietly at his feet, eyes alert. Mia poured another cup of coffee and leaned over his shoulder. You sleep at all? Not really, Eli said, tapping a red marker on the map. There's something wrong with this whole HOA expansion. It doesn't match any official county boundary updates. He pointed to a shaded section on the map. According to county records, we're outside the HOA's legal reach. Always have been. But Karen's been acting like it's already locked in. Mia frowned. So either the county messed up, or she's making it up. Eli nodded. I'm betting on the second one. Later that morning, he called the county zoning office again. After being transferred twice, he finally reached a young clerk named Jamie. Sir, I'm not seeing any signed approval for a boundary expansion involving Maple Ridge. The last formal update was 2 years ago and it didn't include Cedar Hill properties. Ellie's voice sharpened. Then why is the HOA enforcing fines and sending legal threats under a revised map? There was a pause on the other end. That shouldn't be happening. He leaned forward. Can you tell me who submitted the paperwork for expansion? I'd have to request those files might take a few days. Please do. And check if it was signed by anyone named Karen Whitmore. Jamie hesitated, then lowered her voice. I'll look into it. Off the record, you're not the first person who's asked questions about her. That afternoon, Eli received a visit from Robert Gaines, an old friend and former police officer who now ran a local K-9 supply company. I saw the news, Robert said, eyeing the blackened frame of the barn. What happened here? Someone lit it up, Eli said simply. They wanted to shut us down. Robert nodded slowly. You always knew how to attract the wrong kind of attention. Eli cracked a dry smile. Wasn't trying to. Just wanted a quiet place to train some dogs. Robert looked him dead in the eye. You training anyone important right now? Eli shrugged. 3 new cadets for County K-9. And to veterans working their dogs through PTSD recovery. Then this isn't just harassment. It's obstruction. Eli stared at him. You think it's worth going to the sheriff? Robert leaned in. If Karen burned down that barn, she didn't just commit arson. She interfered with law enforcement infrastructure. That's a whole different level of crime. That night, Mia opened her laptop and did some digging of her own. I found something weird, she said, spinning the screen round. One of Karen's board members, Mark Helton, moved out last month. Quietly, listed his house fast and left town. Eli frowned. He was the treasurer, right? Yeah. And get this, his name's on the expansion request. But when I called, his office number, it was disconnected. Eli stood. We need a paper trail. By morning, they drove to the county archive building and requested every HOA filing over the past 2 years. After 3 hours of scanning signatures and timestamps, they found what they were looking for. A single document titled Maple Ridge HOA Zoning Charter Amendment, signed by Karen Whitmore and Mark Helton. But the notary section was blank. No stamp. No official date. It had been filed manually, not electronically. Mia whispered, this is fake. Or, at the very least, it's incomplete. And yet, Karen had used this document to threaten property seizure, daily fines, and enforcement action. She had built an entire web of power over something the county hadn't even processed. She submitted fake paperwork, Eli said, and no one noticed because no one fought back until now. Back at the farm, a new letter was waiting in the mailbox, this one bolder, with final warning stamped in red, due to continued non-compliance. The Maple Ridge HOA will initiate escalated enforcement action under the Uniform Community Standards, or CT. Fines will be tripled. Property review begins Friday. Eli held the letter in his hand for a long time before crumpling it. They're trying to bankrupt us, Mia said. Burn the barn. Now they'll bury us in paperwork. Eli looked across the pasture, where Duke and 2 young shepherds were sniffing through his search drill setup. The barn could be rebuilt. The mission couldn't be stopped there. Betting will quit, he said quietly. But they don't understand what this place really is. He looked back at Mir, then at the wide open land around them. They think it's just a farm. A flicker of steel entered his voice. It's a base, and we're not surrendering. 3 nights after uncovering the forged HOA paperwork, the first shot rang out. Eli was on the porch, sipping coffee in the dark. Duke lay beside him, calm but watchful. The sound sliced through the silence, one sharp crack, distant, but unmistakable. He didn't flinch. He stood. Another shot followed, closer this time. No impact, no shattered glass, just noise, a warning. Eli turned toward the field. He couldn't see anyone, but he didn't need to. The message was clear: back off, or things would escalate further. Mir came out holding her phone. It was from the tree line, she said. I called the sheriff. Eli didn't say anything. He walked to the gate, looked out at the dark silhouette of the woods, and waited. He stayed there, unmoving, until the patrol car arrived. Deputy Givens was the one who responded, a stocky, middle-aged man with graying hair and a visible limp. He got out of his cruiser with a weary sigh. Shots fired. Huh, he said. 3rd time this month I've been called to this road. And every time, it's something connected to that damn HOA. Eli nodded toward the fence line. They're trying to rattle me. Figured a few warning shots would send a message. Givens looked around the property. The scorched barn still visible in the moonlight. This doesn't look like someone who scares easy. Eli offered a half smile. No, sir. But it's not just about me anymore. Givens jotted something in his notepad, then said quietly, listen, off the record, Karen's been pulling strings. People downtown are tired of her nonsense. But she knows how to use the system. Technicalities, loopholes. She's got people afraid to push back. She filed fraudulent documents, Eli said. We've got proof. Then go public with it, Givens said. File your complaint. Get your story out before she twists it into something else. Eli nodded, already in motion. As the deputy drove off, Duke returned to Ellie's side, ears still twitching toward the trees. The next day, Eli received an anonymous call. A low voice, muffled and tense. You don't know me, but I used to serve on the HOA board. Karen doesn't. Stop. I saw what she did to the last guy who questioned her, Mark Kelton. She threatened to audit his business, report him to the IRS. He left the state. Eli leaned forward. You were on the board. I resigned 2 months ago. It was getting dangerous. You need to be careful. She doesn't just want control, she wants obedience. The call ended without a name, just a click. Mia played the voicemail twice and looked at Eli. We're not just dealing with a power trip. This is personal for her. She's afraid of exposure, Eli said. She knows she crossed the line. That weekend, Eli sent a call out quietly, through private channels and former colleagues. He didn't post publicly, didn't stir drama. Just one message to the network he trusted: training site compromised, rebuilding in progress. Assistance, welcome. The response was immediate. By Monday, trucks started pulling into the gravel drive. Police K-9 units from neighboring counties, military handlers on leave, veterans who had once trained at Ellie's facility. They didn't bring weapons. They brought dogs, gear, time, and manpower. The front gate that once stood alone now held her. New sign. Clean and simple. Maple Ridge K-9 support and training. Veteran-operated. Robert Gaines showed up with 2 cadets and a brand new training dummy. Told you this place wasn't just a farm, he said, shaking Allie's hand. It's a damn cornerstone. They set up temporary canopies where the barn had stood, cleaned out debris, rebuilt the wall that had collapsed, and in the center of it all stood Duke, supervising like a general. Karen watched from afar. Her Lexus slowed along the road each morning, her tinted windows catching glimpses of the growing crowd. Uniformed officers, patrol cars, K-9s leaping through drills. No one waved, no one invited her in. That night, Eli received another letter. This one was short, no threats, no legal jargon. Operations conducted on your property must cease immediately. You are hosting unauthorized personnel. You are being reported to Homeland Security. It was signed, as always, Karen Whitmore, President. Maple Ridge. HOA read the letter aloud on the porch as Duke rested nearby. Mia laughed dryly. She's running out of moves. No, Eli said. She's about to make a desperate one. He looked toward the dark field beyond the pasture. She tried fire. Now she's going to try fear. But what Karen didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have imagined, was that this wasn't just a home for G's anymore. It was a registered K-9 base, protected under county and federal law. And the twist that would undo her was already on its way. The real twist arrived on a Tuesday morning. The sun was barely over the horizon when a black SUV with government plates rolled through the gate. It wasn't marked, but Eli recognized the energy immediately. 2 men stepped out. No vests, no show, clean-cut, serious. One carried a thin leather portfolio. The other had a badge on his belt. Mia met them on the porch. "Can I help you? We're here to speak with Mr. Thompson," the older one said, regarding federal contracts and infrastructure reports tied to this location. Eli emerged from the barn's frame, where he'd been directing some cadets. "That's me," the taller man nodded. "We're with the State Division of Homeland Law Enforcement Support Services. There's been a complaint filed accusing you of operating an unauthorized training facility with paramilitary implications." Eli didn't flinch. "Let me guess, Karen Whitmore." They exchanged a glance. Clearly expecting the name, she filed a complaint to Homeland Security. Mia asked in disbelief. "3 of them," the agent said. "We take those seriously. But we also know how to do our homework." He opened his folder and pulled out a form. "According to federal records, this site is officially registered under the Veterans K-9 Recovery and Tactical Integration Program, grant-funded, county-approved, and operating with cooperative law enforcement endorsements going back 6 years." Mia blinked. "Wait, you're saying we're officially protected?" "More than protected," the agent said. "You're classified as a support partner to municipal K-9 development across 3 jurisdictions. Any effort to obstruct or sabotage this facility, especially if tied to arson, crosses into felony territory." Eli raised a brow. "So where does that leave her?" The man tucked his folder under his arm. "We're launching a joint inquiry, county and state. Everything's been documented, including the fire, your video footage, the zoning discrepancies, and the forged charter expansion. It's enough to trigger a full HOA audit." Eli exhaled through his nose. "About time." An hour later, a county investigator arrived, this time not to observe, but to act. He walked the perimeter with Eli, taking photos of the fire damage, the falsified letters, and the HOA enforcement notices that had been left behind. Then he asked a simple question. "Where is the original training license filed?" Mia handed it over. The investigator reviewed it, nodded, and sealed it in a folder. "You were covered from the beginning," he said. "Karen's been banking on intimidation, not legality. That ends now." Meanwhile, word spread fast. By evening, the driveway was lined with police vehicles and media vans. Local news reporters stood outside the gate, speaking in hushed tones, trying to film discreetly while K-9 South ran drills in the background. Karen had pushed too hard and, in doing so, had drawn all eyes to her. but she wasn't finished. That same day, she showed up at the edge of the property, flanked by two board members, both clearly uncomfortable. One even holding a stack of folders he couldn't stop fidgeting with. Eli stepped out to meet her, arms crossed. Karen, for once, didn't speak first. The older board member spoke instead. "Mr. Thompson, we didn't know the extent of this facility's involvement with law enforcement. Karen never disclosed any of this." Karen's jaw tightened. It was never properly communicated. "It's not the HOA's fault that you forged the expansion map," Mia interrupted, walking out with a folder in hand. "Because we have your signature on our document the county never approved. You submitted it anyway and threatened property seizure. That's fraud." Karen stepped forward, voice low. "You've been parading this circus like you're some sort of hero. But this is a community, and you don't belong here, no matter what documents you wave around." Eli stared at her, silent for a beat. Then he said calmly, "This isn't about community, it's about control, and you lost it." The next morning, county officials arrived to serve Karen an official notice of investigation. Charges under review: filing fraudulent HOA documents, impersonating a zoning authority, criminal harassment, obstruction of county-certified programs. Potential arson. Board dissolved her presidency by emergency vote. That same afternoon, Karen didn't show up to the meeting, according to neighbors. She packed a suitcase and left before sunset, driving off in her Lexus without saying a word. Eli sat on the porch that night, the dogs resting around him, the smell of fresh lumber in the air from the barn's rebuild. "What now?" Mia asked. He looked across the land, now buzzing again with drills, dogs, and volunteers. "We finish what we started," she smiled, because what Karen hadn't realized was that this place had never just been a farm. It had always been a foundation, and now it had become something even stronger. 3 weeks after Karen vanished, the barn stood tall again. It wasn't just rebuilt, it was better, reinforced with fireproof siding, solar-powered lights, and expanded training areas that could now accommodate simultaneous drills for both cadets and active-duty K-9 teams. The structure rose like a statement. "We're still here." Eli stood at the edge of the field as sunrise spread gold across the pasture. The scent of fresh wood and dew hung in the air. Duke sat beside him, tail thumping once against the ground. Behind them, the farm buzzed with quiet activity, handlers stretching, dogs warming up, the low rhythm of boots on gravel and leashes unclipping. Normalcy was returning. But it wasn't the same normal as before. It was sharper, clearer. It was earned. That week, the county issued an official audit report on the Maple Ridge HOA. The findings were damning: unauthorized amendments to zoning, filings, misuse of funds, abuse of enforcement authority, and falsified documentation signed by Karen Whitmore and submitted under false pretenses. The county attorney recommended criminal prosecution on multiple counts. But it didn't end there. Former residents came forward, people who had quietly left Maple Ridge over the past few years. One after another, they spoke of threats, fake violations, letters stapled to doors, and fines that seemed to appear out of nowhere. Most had no energy left to fight. Karen had drained them emotionally and financially until they gave up. Now, those voices were being heard, and Karen, wherever she was, had become a pariah. One day, a small, unfamiliar car pulled into the driveway. A young woman stepped out, early 30s, nervous eyes, holding a thick envelope. "You don't know me," she said softly, "but my dad was Mark Helton. He passed away last month, pancreatic cancer. Before he died, he asked me to bring you this." Eli took the envelope and offered her a seat on the porch. Inside were documents, emails, meeting minutes, financial records, and a handwritten note. I tried to stop her. I didn't know how deep it went until it was too late. If you're reading this, I hope you made it out the other side. Do something with this. She can't keep getting away with it. Mark Keltonelli sat quietly for a moment before folding the letter. "I will," he said. Weeks passed. Then a month, life stabilized. The training program expanded. A new uni from out of state joined the rotation, and the local sheriff's department now used the facility weekly. Veterans in need of support arrived steadily, some with their own dogs, others paired through Allie's network. Word spread far beyond the county. Donations began trickling in. Then they surged. A nonprofit was formed, Valor K9 Initiative, and the farm, it had a new name to Kelton Ridge. In honor of the man who tried to stand up before or anyone else, the HOA, now under interim leadership, issued a formal apology. But no one from the farm acknowledged it, not out of pride, but because apologies, by then, meant very little. The apology didn't rebuild the barn, it didn't undo the threats, and it certainly didn't restore the trust Karen had shattered. But something else did. Every time a veteran walked off, that field with a stabilized dog by their side healed a little. Every time a law enforcement team ran drills here without worrying about politics or power trips. Every time a dog who'd once been discarded proved itself in a new mission that rebuilt more than any statement could. One crisp morning, a film crew from a national news outlet arrived to do a feature on the program. As they sat up on the front porch, the reporter asked Eli a question. So, if you could say anything to the people who tried to shut you down, what would it be? Eli didn't hesitate. I'd thank them. The reporter blinked. Thank them, he nodded. They forced us to prove why we exist. And in doing that, we found people we never would have met. They tried to burn us down. And we turned the ashes into foundation. This place. It was always meant to serve. Now it does, louder than ever. The camera kept rolling. In the background, Duke barked once sharp, proud, and the cadets called out commands in unison. As the sun climbed over the new barn roof, Mia joined Eli on the porch steps. Coffee in hand, she bumped her shoulder against his. Think we'll finally get some peace now. Eli smiled. We don't need peace, he said. We've got purpose. And that was something no horror could ever take away.